it will consider lifting some sanctions if the pastor is set free. Here's Holly Williams.
This is an economic war, according to Turkey, and the enemy is America, its NATO ally. The Turkish lira has been falling in value for months, but last week it plummeted 20% because of a dispute with Washington over this man, Andrew Brunson, an evangelical pastor from North Carolina who's lived in Turkey for more than 20 years and is accused by the Turkish government of terrorism and spying. Pastor Brunson has been detained here in Turkey for nearly 2 years. The US says it's seen no credible evidence against him.
I have a message on behalf of the President of the United States of America. Release Pastor Andrew Brunson now, or be prepared to face the consequences.
Those consequences are US sanctions and a doubling of tariffs on Turkish steel and aluminum announced by President Trump on Friday. In retaliation, Turkey's doubled tariffs on US passenger cars, coal and other goods and announced a boycott of US electronic goods. These angry Turks tore up fake dollar bills in protest. Many people here believe this crisis is all the fault of the US, even though experts have been warning of danger signs for months, some blaming Turkey's authoritarian president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. A defiant President Erdogan said, quote, "They have their dollars, we have our God," last week. But though the Turkish lira rallied somewhat today, the markets do not share his faith in the Turkish economy. Jeff?
A dispute that seems to have no end right now. Holly Williams in Istanbul, thanks. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, dozens are treated after a mass overdose on a drug that seems to be everywhere now. And later, the search for a pregnant mother and her little girls. Emergency crews in New Haven, Connecticut today responded to a mass overdose. Nearly 50 people have been treated after taking synthetic marijuana, which can be 100 times more powerful than normal pot. As Tony DeCopel reports, it is a growing national problem.
Calls began streaming in after 8 a.m.
Epic 4 emergency 1 responding on an EMS alarm, New Haven Green.
Dozens of people suffering from nausea, vomiting, some unconscious, suspected of overdosing on a synthetic marijuana known as K2.
And even while we were trying to return people to service, they were passing victims on the ground.
During this press conference on the New Haven Green, another apparent victim.
We're getting another call of a person.
Emergency workers rush in to respond.
Stop moving. Come on, baby, let's go.
The Drug Enforcement Administration has tried to crack down on the distribution of K2, but it hasn't stopped the rise in use. Across the country in the past 3 years, more than 13,000 people have reportedly been sickened by synthetic cannabinoids like K2, over 1,200 in the first 7 months of this year alone. In May, nearly 60 people overdosed on a batch of the drug in Brooklyn, and officials in Connecticut call today's scene part of a national epidemic.
It's a nationwide problem that people are self-medicating for several different reasons.
This afternoon, police arrested one man believed to be tied to the overdoses here. Just moments ago, we learned of a second arrest. Now, Jeff, no fatalities reported, but it's important to point out that synthetic on it chemically different and much more dangerous than the legal marijuana now available in many U.S. states. Jeff?
And as we can see, still an active scene behind you. An alarming story, Tony. Thanks. Coming up next year on the CBS Evening News, a race to a barbecue nearly ends in a runway disaster.